All right. Welcome to this deep dive. We've got a really fascinating collection of stuff here, and it's all about being more effective in our lives and our relationships. And it seems like the spark for all this was the 7 habits of highly effective people.
Right.
And from what we gather, you're not just looking for a summary. You're really looking to get to the core of it.
Yeah.
Like the core principles that can make a real difference without, feeling like you're drowning in information.
Absolutely. And I think the sources you brought in are fascinating because you've got a parent's personal story. You've got to look at the history of success literature, and you even have insights from the business world. And it seems like they're all pointing to something really fundamental about how we achieve what we're trying to achieve.
Exactly. And I think that's what we want to get to today. But we don't just want to summarize. We want to actually dig into that central shift that's being proposed, because it's not just about a few quick tips or techniques, is it? It's something much deeper. And I think our mission today is to really understand this idea of principle-centered living and why it's presented as like the foundation for actually being effective over the long haul. So one of the first big ideas we hit is this idea of paradigms.
Yeah.
What exactly are these things, and why are they so important to kind of wrap our minds around?
Well, think of a paradigm as your personal lens on the world. It's the way you see things, your frame of reference, your underlying assumptions.
Okay.
And I always love this analogy. Imagine you have a map to get to Chicago, right? It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Every street is marked perfectly.
Okay.
But completely unbeknownst to you, this map is actually of Detroit.
Oh.
So no matter how meticulously you plan your route, no matter how diligently you follow those streets, you're going to end up in the wrong place.
Yeah.
It's not that your effort is the problem. It's that your fundamental understanding of where you are and where you need to go is flawed.
I see what you're saying. So it's like if our internal maps, our paradigms are out of sync with reality or with basic principles, then even our best efforts, our hardest work, can actually take us in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And I think one of the sources really brought that to life, talking about these parents who were trying so hard to help their son.
Right.
They were using all sorts of techniques, but nothing seemed to work.
Absolutely. They were operating under a certain paradigm of their son, a perception of his limitations. And when they really kind of took a step back and looked at their own feelings, they realized that this underlying belief was what they were communicating, louder than any of their, encouraging words or actions.
So it wasn't even necessarily what they were doing. It was
what they were being.
But at a very fundamental level,
And this brings us to this really crucial distinction, I think, that the material makes, and that is this difference between the personality ethic and the character ethic.
Yeah.
So what's the difference, and why does it matter so much? Because it feels like so much advice out there is about personality. It is, and so the personality ethic is really about those external quick fixes. So things like cultivating a positive attitude, or developing certain social skills, or using persuasive techniques to get what you want in the short run.
Yeah.
It's often about how to appear successful or influential without necessarily having a deep foundation.
Got it.
Whereas the character ethic really digs down to the core. It's about fundamental principles like integrity, humility, courage, justice, patience. And it argues that lasting success and genuine, strong relationships are built from the inside out on a solid base of good character.
So it's really about who you are at your core
versus
just how you present yourself to the world.
Absolutely. And the source even quotes Emerson here saying, what you are shouts so loudly in my ears that I cannot hear what you say.
It's a powerful quote, and I think it really resonates because at the end of the day, your true character kind of speaks volumes, doesn't it?
It does.
People sense authenticity, and they also sense when there's a gap between your words and your true self. And this idea of needing a deep internal foundation leads us to another key concept, I think, and that is the importance of process.
Yes.
In our own growth and development. And this feels tricky because we live in a world that's all about like instant transformation and overnight success.
Right. Promises it everywhere.
Totally. Right. So tell me more about this idea of process.
Well, the sources use a simple but really powerful analogy, a child learning to walk.
Okay.
There's a natural sequential progression, first turning over, then sitting up, then crawling, then finally walking.
Yeah.
Then eventually running. You can't just skip steps.
Right.
And each stage is essential and takes the necessary time. And this same fundamental principle applies across all areas of growth, whether it's mastering a new skill, developing emotional maturity, building a strong, lasting relationship, or even implementing significant change within an organization.
So is it that frustration that we often feel when we try to rush things or take shortcuts?
Yeah.
Is that actually a signal that we're kind of going against a natural order?
I think it is. I think trying to bypass the process inevitably leads to disappointment and frustration.
Yeah.
Think about someone who, tries to pretend they have a level of expertise they haven't actually earned, whether it's on the tennis court or playing a musical instrument, or even in their emotional responses.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, that lack of fundamental development will become apparent.
It will.
And this idea of sequential growth is also reflected in the maturity continuum.
Right. The progression from dependence to independence to interdependence.
To interdependence, that's right.
So break that down a little bit more for us. What are the nuances there?
Sure. So we all begin in a state of dependence, the you paradigm.
Okay.
As infants, we are completely reliant on others to meet our basic needs. Gradually, we grow toward independence, the I paradigm.
Yeah.
This is where we become self-reliant, capable of taking care of our own needs and making our own decisions.
Yeah.
But the most mature stage of development is interdependence, the we paradigm. This is about recognizing that we can achieve even greater things by collaborating effectively with others.
But the source makes this really interesting point that true interdependence is a choice that only independent people can truly make.
Right.
Why is that distinction so important?
Because genuine interdependence requires a certain strength of character,
Okay.
a strong sense of self-worth, and the ability to both give and take in a relationship. Dependent people are constantly relying on others. They haven't developed the internal resources to truly collaborate as equals.
I see.
Independent individuals, having cultivated those resources, can then consciously choose to work together for mutual benefit, creating outcomes that are far greater than what they could achieve on their own.
And this idea of, individual capacity, but also being able to come together and create results.
Yeah.
That's captured, I think, in this concept of the PPC balance.
It is. And that's where that wonderful...
The goose and the golden egg?
The goose and the golden egg metaphor comes in.
Okay, so explain how that works.
All right, so P stands for production.
Okay.
Those are the golden eggs, the tangible results we're aiming for. PC stands for production capability.
Okay.
That's the goose, which represents our ability to produce those results in the long run.
Right.
And truly effective people and organizations understand that they must constantly balance their focus on achieving short-term outcomes with the crucial need to nurture and maintain the long-term health and well-being of the system that produces those results.
So neglecting the goose in our relentless pursuit of more golden eggs, more immediate results, is that ultimately going to lead to fewer and fewer eggs?
Right.
Or even, the death of the goose.
The demise of the goose, that's right.
So give us an example of how that might play out.
Well, consistently burning the candle at both ends, to maximize productivity in the short term might yield impressive immediate results, but it will inevitably lead to burnout, decreased effectiveness, and potentially serious health issues down the line. Similarly, pushing your own agenda in a key relationship without investing time and effort in building trust and mutual understanding might get you what you want in that particular moment, but it can severely damage the relationship, hindering future collaboration and long-term success.
So it's really about maintaining that delicate balance.
It is. It's the very essence of sustained effectiveness.
And now the source moves into, talking about the first of the 7 habits, and that is be proactive.
Yes.
So what's at the core of that habit?
Well, proactivity is all about taking responsibility for our choices and our lives.
Okay.
It's the opposite of being reactive and blaming external circumstances for our problems or for our feelings.
Right.
Proactive individuals recognize their fundamental ability to choose their response to any given situation.
Yeah.
They understand that while they can't always control what happens to them, they can always control how they react.
So true.
They focus their time and energy on their circle of influence, the things they actually have some control over, rather than dwelling on their much larger circle of concern, the many things they have no direct control over.
And the source gives that powerful example of how different companies in the home improvement industry reacted during a recession.
Oh, yeah.
And you had the companies that were totally focused on, the negative economic condition.
Right, feeling like victims.
Right. And then you had these other companies that were like, all right, what can we do? How can we manage our costs? How can we improve our services?
Yeah.
Can we even increase market share?
Right.
So they were focused on the things they could control.
Absolutely. And, thinking historically, a figure like Gandhi,
Yeah.
I mean, while many others might have focused their energy on criticizing the British Empire, which was clearly, within their circle of concern.
Right.
He strategically focused on building influence and empowering the Indian people.
Wow.
Which was his circle of influence.
Yeah.
And it led to profound and lasting change.
And the source makes this really insightful distinction between the haves of our circle of concern and the bees of our circle of influence.
That's so powerful.
I love that. And I think it's so easy to get caught up in the haves, like, if only I had more money, if only I had a better boss,
right?
If only I had this or that.
If only this had happened.
Right, versus I could be more patient,
yes.
I can be more skilled,
right.
I can be more understanding.
Absolutely.
And that's all within our control.
It is. And the story of Joseph in Egypt, I think, really brings this home.
Yeah, tell me about that.
I mean, here's a guy who faces incredible adversity. He's sold into slavery. He's unjustly imprisoned.
Wow.
But he consistently focuses on his own character, on who he chose to be, and ultimately he rises to a position of immense influence.
And so proactivity really is about working on ourselves.
It is.
Our character, our capabilities.
Yes.
Regardless of our external circumstance.
That's it.
And with that proactive foundation, then we move into the second habit. Begin with the end in mind.
Yes.
So what's the core idea behind this one?
Well, this is about having a crystal clear vision of what you ultimately want to achieve.
Okay.
In all areas of your life, it's about defining your core values, your most important goals, and essentially creating a mental blueprint before you even start to build.
Right.
This is where that idea of personal leadership really comes in.
It does. You're the leader of your own life.
Exactly. It's the first or mental creation.
Okay.
It's about envisioning the desired end result and then consciously working backward to make it a reality.
And I think a really crucial tool here is developing that personal mission statement.
It is.
And it sounds kind of formal, but really it's just about writing down your
right.
deepest values, your guiding principles, your aspirations.
That's right.
And the source even suggests, some pretty powerful visualization exercises.
Yeah.
Like imagining your own funeral or your retirement celebration to help you kind of clarify what really matters.
What really matters to you, what kind of impact you want to have.
And it sounds a little intense, that funeral visualization, but I get the point.
Yeah.
It's about legacy, isn't it?
It is.
It's about the kind of person you want to be remembered as.
By the people who matter most to you. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then there are affirmations.
Yes.
Those personal positive statements that you write in the present tense.
Yeah.
And they're designed to kind of reinforce those deep values and goals.
Right. And a well-crafted affirmation infused with genuine emotion and vivid visualization can be an incredibly powerful tool for aligning your daily actions and decisions with your most fundamental values and long-term aspirations.
So we've got that proactivity, we've got that vision, and then we move to habit 3, put first things first.
Yes.
So what's the essence of that?
Well, this is all about personal management. It's the second, or physical creation. Taking that mental blueprint that you've created in habit 2 and actually implementing it in your daily life. It's about prioritizing your tasks and organizing your time around what is truly important, rather than just reacting to whatever feels urgent.
And I think the distinction between leadership and management is highlighted here as well.
Absolutely.
So how do they differentiate between those two?
Well, leadership is more about the why.
Okay.
Defining the direction, establishing the vision, answering those fundamental questions. Management, on the other hand, is more about the how. The tactical execution, the organization of resources, the implementation of the plan.
Right.
And to be truly effective, we need to cultivate both strong leadership within ourselves and effective management of our time and priorities.
And I think a really useful tool here is the time management matrix that the source introduces.
It is a great way of categorizing our activities.
So you got those 4 quadrants. Urgent and important, which is quadrant. Not urgent, but important, quadrant 2.
Yes.
Urgent but not important, quadrant 3. And then not urgent and not important, which is quadrant 3.
Right.
And I think the big aha is that we really need to consciously focus the majority of our time and energy on quadrant 2.
Absolutely.
Those activities that are important to our goals and values, but don't have that immediate deadline.
They're not screaming for our attention right now.
Right. And that's where we do things like, building those meaningful relationships, long-term planning, proactive prevention, personal development, creative thinking.
Yeah, all the things that have the biggest positive impact on our long-term well-being and success.
But to really focus on quadrant 2, we often need to learn to say no to those seemingly pressing demands of quadrant 3.
Right. The tyranny of the urgent.
And minimize that time we waste on those quadrant 4 activities.
The time wasters, yeah.
And that ability to prioritize and say no really stems from having that clear understanding of our principles, our personal mission, that bigger yes, as the source calls it.
It gives you the criteria to make those tough decisions.
And so it feels like, habits 1, 2, and 3 are all about achieving that kind of private victory, building that self-mastery, developing that inner strength, achieving independence.
Right.
And now the focus shifts to public victory.
Yes.
And this crucial realm of interdependence.
Absolutely.
And we start with habit 4, think win-win.
It's a good one.
So what's the core idea behind this principle?
Well, win-win is fundamentally a philosophy of mutual benefit in all your interactions with other people.
Okay.
It's about actively seeking solutions where everyone involved feels good about the outcome and remains committed to the agreed-upon plan.
Right.
It represents a fundamental shift from a competitive, scarcity-based mindset to a more cooperative, abundance-oriented way of thinking.
And the source actually outlines, I think, 6 different paradigms of human interaction.
It does.
So you've got win, lose, lose, win. Lose, lose.
Right.
Win, where you're just focused on getting your way.
Only your own game.
Win, win. And then this really interesting one, win, win, or no deal.
I love that one.
That no deal option, I think, is so powerful because it sets a boundary.
It does.
It's like if we can't find a solution that works for both of us, we're willing to walk away.
We agree to disagree and move on.
And that creates a much more collaborative,
I think so,
respectful environment.
I do too, because neither party feels pressured or manipulated into accepting a deal that doesn't truly meet their needs.
So win-win really isn't just a technique. It's deeper than that.
It's a philosophy.
It's a philosophy. And the source, I think, talks about 5 key dimensions.
Yeah.
Starting with character.
Absolutely.
And, you need that integrity being true to your word.
Yes.
That maturity, which is defined as that balance between courage, standing up for what you believe in, but also consideration, being sensitive to the needs and feelings of others.
That's right.
And that abundance mentality.
Yes.
The belief that there are enough resources and opportunities.
For everyone to succeed.
For everyone to succeed.
That's a powerful mindset shift.
It is. And from that foundation of character, you can then start to build these win-win relationships.
That's right.
Which are all about trust, what the source refers to as the emotional bank account.
Yeah.
So explain that a little bit.
Well, think of it like a real bank account.
Okay.
You make deposits through acts of kindness, honesty-keeping commitments. You make withdrawals when you're unkind. You break your promises. You're disrespectful. And a high emotional bank account allows for open and honest communication.
Right.
It enables you to really focus on the issues at hand rather than getting bogged down in defensiveness or suspicion.
So from those strong relationships, we then get win-win agreements.
That's right.
Where we really clearly define, the expectations, the desired results, and the resources involved.
Absolutely. And those agreements are best nurtured.
Yeah.
Within an environment that supports win-win structures and systems.
Right.
Which are further reinforced by win-win processes.
Okay, so think win-win is really setting the stage for effective collaboration.
It is.
And lays the groundwork for the next habit. Seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Oh, it's such a powerful one.
And it sounds like the absolute key to effective communication.
I think it's often described as the most important principle in the area of interpersonal effectiveness.
Wow.
And it's really the first step in achieving win-win outcomes.
Okay.
Before you even attempt to express your own point of view or persuade someone else, you make a genuine, sincere effort to deeply understand their perspective, their frame of reference, their paradigm.
And the source even goes back to the ancient Greeks talking about ethos, pokos, and logos.
It does.
In the context of, making effective presentation.
Right.
So first, you build that trust and rapport, which is ethos. Then you connect with the other person's feelings and understanding, which is pathos.
Right.
And only then do you present your logical reasoning, your logos.
Exactly.
But the key is understanding comes first.
Absolutely.
It's about giving people what the source calls psychological air.
I love that phrase.
Making them feel heard and valued before you expect them to be receptive.
Right, to your ideas.
And this habit, seek first to understand, is totally within our circle of influence, isn't it?
It is. We always have the power to choose to listen empathically. And as we consistently practice seeking to understand others, our ability to influence them actually increases significantly.
That's interesting.
Yeah, the more deeply we understand someone else's perspective and needs, the more effectively we can work together.
And this deep level of understanding then paves the way for habit 6, synergize.
It does.
So what's the essence of synergy?
Well, synergy is all about creative cooperation.
Okay.
It's where the whole becomes greater than the sum of its individual parts.
Yeah.
It's about truly valuing and leveraging the differences between people to create new possibilities and innovative solutions, what the source refers to as that third alternative.
Right.
Which is often far better than what anyone initially proposed.
So it's recognizing that those unique strengths, perspectives, even weaknesses, can actually complement each other.
They can.
To create these extraordinary results.
Absolutely.
And synergistic communication involves being open to new ideas.
Yes.
Even if they're different from your own.
Even if they challenge your assumptions.
And it requires that high level of trust.
It does.
Mutual respect and a willingness to kind of step outside your comfort zone.
To explore those new possibilities together, absolutely.
So synergy really is the ultimate expression of interdependence.
I think it is.
Where those we possibilities really come to life.
Yeah.
And you achieve things that you just couldn't have on your own.
You can't get there by yourself.
And finally, we arrive at habit 7, sharpen the saw.
Ah, yes. The one that underpins all the others.
Right. And this feels like it's the habit that makes all the other habits possible.
It is. It's the principle of continuous improvement.
So tell us about it.
Well, it's the principle of balanced self-renewal across 4 key dimensions of our lives.
Yeah.
The physical, taking care of our bodies through exercise, nutrition, rest, the spiritual, connecting with our values and our inner self through practices like meditation, spending time in nature, engaging with inspiring art and music.
Yeah.
The mental, continuously learning, reading, writing, engaging in critical thinking and planning.
Okay.
And then the social emotional, nurturing our relationships, practicing empathy and engaging in synergistic interactions, essentially living habits 4, 5, and 6.
Right.
It's about taking the necessary time to care for ourselves so that we have the capacity and energy to live the other 6 habits effectively over the long term.
So physical renewal is about maintaining our basic health and energy. Spiritual renewal is about finding that meaning and purpose.
Yes.
Staying connected to our values.
Right.
Mental renewal is about keeping our minds sharp.
And growing and learning.
And social emotional renewal comes from those strong, healthy relationships.
Absolutely.
And practicing effective interdependence.
That's it.
And it's interesting because renewal in one dimension seems like it impacts all the others.
Oh, it does. For example, taking care of your physical health can boost your mental clarity and your emotional resilience. Absolutely.
And the source talks about this concept of the daily private victory.
Yes.
That we should consciously dedicate at least an hour each day to renewal in those physical, spiritual, and mental dimensions.
I love that idea.
And that consistent investment, I think, builds the security and strength we need to then have effective social emotional renewal through those interactions with other people.
Absolutely.
And there's this crucial concept of conscience as well.
Yeah, our inner sense of right and wrong.
Right, that we need to constantly educate and obey.
To experience true personal freedom.
Wow.
Security, wisdom, and power.
So to bring all this together, it feels like this deep dive into the 7 habits really underscores this profound shift in focus.
It does.
It's moving away from those superficial techniques aimed at managing our personality to this much deeper work of cultivating a strong, principle-centered character.
That's the essence of it.
It's a true inside-out approach.
It is.
Beginning with an examination of our own paradigms and our deeply held values.
Absolutely.
And it's about recognizing that those private victories, achieving self-mastery and independence through habits 1, 2, and 3 are the foundation for those public victories.
They are.
In our relationships and collaboration.
Can't have one without the other.
And these 7 habits They're not isolated techniques.
Nah.
They're interconnected principles.
They are.
That form this powerful upward spiral of growth.
That's a great way to put it.
Through ongoing learning, genuine commitment, and consistent action. So this has been an incredibly insightful journey. I think it goes beyond, just giving a set of tips and tricks.
It does.
It really gets to the heart of what it means to be effective in all areas of our lives.
In all aspects of our lives, that's right.
So for you, our listener, we want to leave you with this thought. In what area of your life have you maybe been focusing on those external fixes or seeking those quick solutions?
Right.
What fundamental internal paradigm shift might lead to more profound and lasting positive results in that area?
That's a great question to ponder.
And maybe take some time to reflect on which of these 7 habits resonates most strongly with your current challenges or your aspirations.
Yeah.
That might be a powerful place to begin your own deeper exploration.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.